This is what leaves look like in Java Edition, and this is what they look like in Bedrock. And here are 62 Java versus Bedrock differences. In Java Edition, a drowned holding a trident will always try to throw it at you, no matter how close you are, even if you're standing right in front of them. But in Bedrock Edition, they'll switch to a melee attack if you're within 3 blocks, which honestly makes a lot more sense. In Bedrock Edition, you can hit your villagers all you want, and it won't matter. Unlike in Java Edition, where even one punch can make them raise their prices, Bedrock villagers don't care at all. You can keep punching them all you want for their terrible trades. Soul Sand is basically useless in Bedrock Edition. If you just sprint jump across it, you can almost completely ignore the slowdown and move nearly as fast as you would on normal blocks, since the slowness doesn't apply while you're in the air. But in Java Edition, even sprint jumping on Soul Sand slows you down a ton, since it still causes your jumps to be slowed down. Did you know it's much easier to MLG Water Bucket in Bedrock Edition? In Java, you have to perfectly time your bucket and place the water right before you land. However, in Bedrock, the player is able to place blocks much faster, so by literally holding right-click and looking down, you can easily clutch from any height. Although this isn't the case on console and mobile, so I guess if you can do a bucket clutch on your iPad, then that's actually impressive. Allies are way more loyal in Bedrock Edition than in Java. In Java, if you want your ally to follow you through a nether or end portal, you have to push it through manually, every single time. But in Bedrock, allies will automatically teleport to you if they're within 21 blocks when you go through a portal. They don't even need to touch it. You could trap one in a glass box, and it would still appear on the other side. The only way to stop them is by leashing them to a fence. Otherwise, your ally is sticking with you no matter where you go. In Java Edition, ocean monuments can generate anywhere on the ocean floor, sometimes close to the surface, but other times much deeper down. But in Bedrock Edition, they always generate at Y level 56, just a few blocks below the surface. That means every ocean monument in Bedrock is way easier to reach. Never try entering the nether from the end dimension, especially in Bedrock Edition. Normally, you can't even build a nether portal in the end, but if you force one in with commands, weird stuff happens. In Java Edition, entering that portal just takes you to the nether, but in Bedrock Edition, it sends you to a random spot in the overworld. When you reach the surface, you'll find everything around you completely frozen. Mobs won't move, blocks won't drop anything, and you won't take damage. Thankfully, reloading your world fixes it, but I wouldn't risk my world over this. Even if you build the fastest XP farm in Java Edition, there's a hard limit. You can only collect 10 XP orbs per second. In extreme cases, this can result in the player being followed by a swarm of orbs. But in Bedrock Edition, there's no such cap. Every XP orb that touches you is instantly absorbed, which means you can build a farm that shoots you straight to level 30 the moment you turn it on. It almost feels illegal, but if you put in the effort to make something that insane, you probably earned it. Ever notice trees that look like they're dying in Bedrock Edition? That's because in Bedrock, some trees like oak, spruce, and dark oak can randomly generate with vines hanging off them, almost like they're decaying. But if you search for these trees in Java, you won't find them. Dying trees with vines only exist in Bedrock. Every item in Minecraft despawns after 5 minutes, right? Wrong! There's one case where this isn't true. When you kill a wither and it drops its nether star, it'll take 10 minutes to despawn in Java Edition, and it'll actually never despawn in Bedrock Edition. In Java Edition, snow layers only melt if they're near a light source like a torch. That means you can build with them in the middle of a desert, and they'll stay there forever, as long as you don't put a light nearby. They don't even react to sunlight! But in Bedrock Edition, snow layers will always melt in any biome where it doesn't snow, regardless of lighting. And instead of disappearing instantly like in Java, they melt gradually, 1 or 2 layers at a time. The knockback enchantment is way more powerful in Bedrock Edition than in Java. That's because Bedrock doesn't have an attack cooldown, so players can spam click their weapons, and with each hit, the knockback effect stacks. In Java, sprint hitting a mob with knockback 2 might send them flying around 10 blocks, but in Bedrock, if you sprint and spam click with knockback 2, you can launch mobs over 30 blocks away, basically turning your sword into a baseball bat. In Java Edition, when a Guardian locks onto you, its laser beam stays mostly grey as it charges, only turning slightly yellow near the end. It's subtle and honestly pretty hard to notice in the middle of a fight, but in Bedrock Edition, the charging beam turns bright green, making it much easier to tell when you're about to get hit. It's a small change, but one that gives players way more time to react. Did you know Bedrock Edition still lets you craft banners the old-fashioned way? Before the loom existed, players players had to place dies in specific patterns on a crafting table to decorate banners. It was clunky, hard to remember, and insanely wasteful. Some patterns used up to 8 dies. Java Edition completely removed those recipes in the 1.14 update when the loom was added, making banner design way easier and cheaper. But in Bedrock Edition, those old recipes still work. You can still toss dies into the crafting table and create patterns, even though it's far less efficient than just using a loom. Hopefully, Bedrock players actually know the loom exists, because otherwise, they might be wasting stacks of dye without realizing it. In Java Edition, the game's code specifically prevents pillager outposts from generating inside villages, because obviously that would make no sense. It also tries to place outposts near villages, since the pillagers are meant to raid them. But in Bedrock Edition, none of that logic applies. Pillager outposts can spawn right in the middle of a village, or even hundreds of blocks away with no village in sight. It's funny to look at, but for the villagers stuck living next to a never-ending pillager spawn point, it's probably pure chaos. In Java Edition, once more than 24 mobs are packed into a single block, they'll begin to take damage due to entity cramming. But in Bedrock Edition, it doesn't exist. You can cram hundreds of mobs into the same space with absolutely no penalty. Like this pit packed with over 200 creepers. I wonder what'll happen if I jump in. Ah! On hard difficulty, a Phantom in Java only deals 1.5 hearts of damage, but in Bedrock Edition, it hits for a whopping 4.5 hearts. That means if you get hit just twice, you're left with only 1 heart. Why are mobs in Bedrock so much stronger? In Java Edition, if you pour a new liquid into a cauldron that's already filled, it simply replaces the old one, which makes sense. But in Bedrock Edition, try doing that, and both liquids just vanish. Gone in a puff of smoke! And yeah, maybe lava and water reacting makes sense, but pouring water into snow and getting smoke? That's not chemistry, that's witchcraft. Buttons behave very differently between Java and Bedrock. In both versions, you can place them on the sides of pistons, but only in Java does the button pop off when the piston is powered. In Bedrock, it just stays put. Also in Bedrock, you can place buttons on top of hoppers, which you can't do in Java. You can insta-mine stone in Bedrock Edition without even using haste. All you need is an efficiency 5 pickaxe. Just stand far enough from a wall so that no block is highlighted, then hold down the destroy button and start walking forward. Every new block you aim at will break instantly. Why does this work? In Bedrock Edition, the first block you start mining is always broken faster. So by not highlighting any block until the last second, each block you mine is treated like the first, allowing for constant insta-mining. And if you combine this trick with a haste 2 beacon, you can even insta-mine deep slates, which isn't possible at all in Java Edition. Everyone knows Bedrock lets you waterlog way more blocks than Java, but here's the crazy part. In Bedrock Edition, water can actually flow through more blocks. You can have full water currents passing right through end rods, big drip leaves, even redstone repeaters, and they won't break. In Java, this will either destroy the block or reroute the water entirely. But in Bedrock, it just flows. And yeah, that means you can build underwater redstone lines. Why is this not a thing in Java yet? Did you know you can force a nitwit to get a job in Bedrock Edition? In Java, nitwits are basically useless. They can't take on jobs no matter what you do. But in Bedrock, there's a secret trick. If you let a zombie infect a nitwit, then cure them with a golden apple and weakness potion, they can actually stop being a nitwit and become a normal, job-ready villager. Java players get the F3 menu to see things like coordinates, biomes, and days played. But on Bedrock Edition, players don't have an F3 menu at all. Instead, Bedrock gives you game rules. If you want to see your coordinates, just type /game rule show coordinates. Or if you want to see the days played on a world, you can do /game rule show days played to add a day counter right to your screen. I wish Java had those, but I guess it would be repetitive. Cats spawn in villages in both versions of Minecraft, but there's a small, adorable difference. In Java Edition, cats that spawn are always adults. You'll never naturally see a baby cat in a village. But in Bedrock Edition, there's a 25% chance that any cat that spawns will be a kitten. So instead of always taming a full-grown cat, you might just find a tiny baby kitten wanting to be your new best friend. Oh. Everyone knows that when you rename containers in Minecraft, like chests or furnaces, the name shows up when you open them. Even enchanting tables can be renamed and display a custom title. But Bedrock Edition takes it a step further. There's one block you can rename that isn't possible in Java, the campfire. Now, campfires don't have a GUI, so what happens when you rename one? In Bedrock, it creates a floating name tag above the block when you look at it, almost like you've given the fire its own little identity. Is it called the Mesa biome or the Badlands biome? Well, technically both are correct. When this biome was first added to Minecraft, it was officially named the Mesa. But in 2018, Java Edition quietly renamed it to the Badlands. So older Java players still call it Mesa, while newer ones are more likely to say Badlands. But here's the twist. Bedrock Edition never changed the name. To this day, if you use the /locate command command, the biome is still called the Mesa biome in Bedrock. The attack damage of most tools and weapons is actually different between Java and Bedrock Edition. Some are actually stronger in Bedrock, like swords and pickaxes, which each deal about half a heart more damage than in Java. Hoes are even crazier. In Java, all hoes do the same low damage, but in Bedrock, each type deals a different amount. A netherite hoe can hit for 3.5 hearts, which is wild, but not everything got buffed. Shovels deal less damage in Bedrock, and axes hit for about a full heart less than in Java. Oddly, the only tool with identical damage in both versions are the trident and the mace. Still, it's confusing that Mojang keeps these small, inconsistent differences. Did you know the Ender Dragon fight is actually harder on Bedrock Edition? Even though the Ender Dragon has the same health and stats in both versions, the way it behaves in Bedrock makes the fight way more intense. For starters, when the dragon perches in Java, it gently hovers down the portal, giving you time to set up beds or land easy hits. But in Bedrock, it slams straight down without warning, making it nearly impossible to prepare anything. And while the Java Dragon charges players only occasionally, in Bedrock, it lunges at you constantly. Breaking end crystals is harder too. In Java, you can hit the ones inside iron bars from certain angles, but Bedrock doesn't let you do that. You'll have to build up every time, which is way riskier with a charging dragon overhead. In Java Edition, raid captains wear the banners stuck to the back of their heads, but in Bedrock Edition, the banner pole is longer and is attached to their back. You can even see the difference in the texture files. Java doesn't have a texture for the long pole, but Bedrock does. Everyone knows bridging in Bedrock Edition is easier than in Java Edition. All you have to do is, while you're running, hold down right-click and don't let go of it. This will allow you to bridge forward while sprinting. But because of this mechanic, there actually exists a way to bridge downward. First, look down at the air in front of you and hold right-click. Then immediately look forward, jump, and then quickly look down. This should place a block directly in front of you, and a block directly below that, meaning that by doing this technique multiple times in a row, you can actually start to build a staircase downward. Pandas are one of Minecraft's most unique mobs, with each variant having slightly different behavior, but those behaviors aren't exactly the same across versions. In Java Edition, lazy pandas are really lazy. Even if you tempt them with bamboo, they'll just lie on their backs and ignore you. But in Bedrock Edition, lazy pandas will actually get up and walk over if you're holding bamboo. What, is Mojang trying to say Java players are lazier than Bedrock players? In Java Edition, if you stare at an Enderman and anger it, you can just keep staring at it, and the Enderman will stay locked in place until you look away. However, I don't recommend trying this in Bedrock Edition because the Enderman will just come to kill you even if you keep looking at its eyes. I'm sorry! Your eyes were just too pretty! Frostwalker is way worse in Java Edition than in Bedrock for two main reasons. First, in Java, it creates ice in a 3-block radius and in a circular shape, while in Bedrock, it creates a 4-block radius in the shape of a square, giving you more coverage. But the bigger difference is how it activates. In Java, Frostwalker only works when the player is on the ground. So if you try to sprint jump, the ice won't generate and you'll fall into the water. In Bedrock, it works even while you're in the air, allowing you to sprint jump or even use an elytra while still freezing water below you. Renaming a map in Java Edition costs you 1 XP level, but in Bedrock Edition, there's actually a built-in name field right inside the cartography table. No XP needed. Just type the name and you're done. It's a small difference, but honestly, I'm jealous. Why doesn't Java have this? Nitwit villagers are much rarer in Java Edition because breeding villagers will never produce them. You can only get a nitwit if one spawns naturally in a village or if a zombie villager spawns as one. In Bedrock Edition, however, every time a baby villager grows up, there's a 10% chance it becomes a nitwit, even if neither parent was one. Why do leaves look so bad in Bedrock Edition? When you switch to fast graphics in Minecraft, the game removes the transparent parts of leaves to help with performance. In Java Edition, those parts get filled in with black, which still looks pretty decent. But in Bedrock Edition, it replaces them with strange colored pixels, and the result can be rough. Spruce and cherry leaves are passable, but oak starts looking a little off, and birch leaves, they turn into a weird blocky mess that looks more like spinach than foliage. So yeah, maybe stick with fancy graphics if you want your forest to actually look like a forest. Why is it harder to collect dead coral in Java Edition? In Bedrock, you can use any tool with Silk Touch, even a shovel or an axe, to pick up dead coral fans. But in Java Edition, it only works if you use a Silk Touch pickaxe. And here's the strange part. Living coral in Java works just like Bedrock. Since any Silk Touch tool can collect it, it's only the dead coral that specifically requires a pickaxe. In Bedrock Edition only, there's a weird glitch you can trigger using pistons and kelp. If you push a piston into a waterlogged kelp block and then break the kelp, the water turns into a ghost block. It stays floating in place even if you break all the blocks around it, and it gets better. You can actually ride a boat on top of that ghost water. To other players, it'll look like your boat is just floating in midair, like some kind of magic trick. Ender pearls are actually better better in Bedrock Edition. In Java Edition, you can throw them about 30 blocks, but in Bedrock, you can throw them up to 45 blocks, which is 50% farther. That extra range can let you teleport across wider end islands. Being on fire in Java versus Bedrock is a whole different experience. In Java Edition, getting lit on fire is annoying, but you can still see and fight just fine. But in Bedrock, the fire effect covers so much of your screen, and you're basically helpless until it wears off. This makes exploring the Nether in Bedrock way more stressful. Every time you catch fire, you're just praying you survive. Bedrock only got Spectator mode in 2022 with the Wild update, and while it looks similar, it's missing some surprisingly important features. First off, you can't adjust your flying speed. In Java, scrolling the mouse wheel lets you speed up or slow down, perfect for exploring quickly. In Bedrock, you're locked at one speed no matter what. But the coolest missing feature is Java's hidden Reveal Players button. It gives all players a glowing outline, letting you see them through walls. Great for spectating PvP or finding friends. Bedrock doesn't have anything like it. You know that creepy ghost that appears when the Elder Guardian gives you mining fatigue? Turns out it's completely different between Java and Bedrock. In Java Edition, the ghost is just a particle effect. You can even spawn it using a command. But since it's only a visual, it doesn't actually apply any effects. But in Bedrock Edition, the ghost is actually a separate invisible entity, and you can summon it with a command. If you're in survival mode, it shows the ghost and gives you mining fatigue, just like normal. But here's where it gets weird. If you switch to creative mode and summon it while standing in fire, you'll see the invisible Elder Guardian slowly float upward like some kind of spooky ghost. Redstone in Java Edition is super weird. Even if redstone isn't directly touching a piston, the piston can still activate, thanks to something called quasi-connectivity. This happens because pistons, dispensers, and droppers were originally coded using the same source code as doors, which check for redstone power one block above them, even if that's not where they usually are. It does allow for redstone machines to be a lot smaller, but I completely see why it's not in Bedrock Edition. In Java Edition, many structures like pillager outposts or villages generate without a base. That means they often end up just hovering in midair, especially if the terrain is uneven. But in Bedrock Edition, structures are given full foundations that extend all the way down to the ground, no matter how far that is. This might seem like a minor detail, but it leads to some wild world generation. You might find a pillager outpost with a massive wooden pillar stretching dozens of blocks in the air, or even an ocean monument reaching all the way to the seafloor. Villagers in Java Edition actually run up to the bell and ring it themselves when a raid starts, like a proper little warning system. But when a raid starts in Bedrock Edition, the bell just rings itself. It just magically goes ding on its own. It's a cool feature, but also kinda mysterious. Like, could this bell be haunted, or are dead ghost villagers ringing it? In Java Edition, crafting a stonecutter requires regular stone, so you have to smelt cobblestone first. But in Bedrock Edition, it's way more convenient. You can use diorite, granite, or andesite instead, and even mix them together in the recipe. So instead of firing up a furnace, you can just dig up some diorite and craft a stonecutter on the spot. In Java Edition, you can easily shoot arrows through the gaps in iron bars to destroy end crystals inside cages. But in Bedrock Edition, this doesn't work. Arrows just get stuck and float in the gap, even though players and other entities can pass through just fine. It's unclear why only arrows behave this way, but it makes breaking those crystals way harder during the dragon fight in Bedrock. Netherite is way easier to get in Bedrock Edition. Here's why. In Java Edition, mining for ancient debris is a nightmare. You'll constantly run into lava pockets that either slow you down or straight up kill you. And just when you think you're safe, you'll dig into a basalt delta and have to mine through tough basalt instead of soft netherrack. But in Bedrock Edition, none of that's a problem. Lava pockets underground are way less common, and basalt doesn't even generate below a certain Y level. So you can just dig in a straight line with barely any obstacles. The void is darker in Java than in Bedrock Edition. In Java, falling into the void causes half the sky to turn pitch black, no matter what time of day it is. It really sells the feeling of being swallowed by an endless abyss. But in Bedrock, the sky doesn't change at all. If it's daytime, the void just looks sunny. Sure, most players won't end up in the void too often, especially in the overworld, but still, it's one of those small details where Java nails the atmosphere. There are a lot of quality of life features in Java Edition that are just missing in Bedrock, the most notable ones being all of Java's keybinds for inventory management. With the number keys, you can quickly move items to and from your different hotbar slots quickly in the inventory. But in Bedrock Edition, this isn't possible. More annoyingly, Bedrock doesn't have the F key for swapping the items in your main hand and offhand, meaning you can't quickly equip your shield if you need to. And don't even get me started on the fact that you can't actually put torches or food in your offhand on Bedrock Edition. I swear, every time I build a beacon in Java Edition, I think I did something wrong. I'll place the final block on the pyramid, wait for the beam, and nothing. For a few seconds, there's just silence until the beam finally appears. Turns out the delay only happens in Java. In Bedrock Edition, the beacon beam appears instantly the moment you place that last block. It's such a small difference, but it makes the whole process feel way more responsive. In Java Edition, dead coral blocks never generate on their own. The only way to get them is to break coral and place it out of water. But in Bedrock Edition, something strange happens. You'll find coral reefs that have dead coral already mixed in, like parts of the reef are rotting away. It was reported as a bug, but then it was marked as a feature that works as intended. Dispensers are just straight up better in Java Edition. If a dispenser fires arrows at a target even just 4 blocks away, the accuracy is terrible. Many arrows miss entirely, and the ones that do hit are scattered all over the place. But in Java Edition, the arrows hit the target every single time and land in a much tighter cluster. So if you're building base defenses in Bedrock using dispensers, prepare to waste a lot of arrows for not much payoff. If you've ever used an elytra, you've probably crashed into a wall and died at some point. In Java Edition, avoiding this takes practice, but Bedrock makes it way easier. You can actually press the jump button while flying to instantly turn off your elytra and stop mid-air, which prevents impact damage. In Java, the closest workaround is keeping a chest plate on your hotbar and quickly right-clicking to swap it with your elytra, but it's nowhere near as simple as just pressing jump. When you use bone meal on grass in Java Edition, you'll get flowers, short grass, and sometimes a bit of tall grass. But in Bedrock Edition, you'll get flowers and short grass too, but instead of tall grass, it gives you ferns. That small difference actually makes ferns way easier to get in Bedrock, while in Java, you have to go out and find a biome where they naturally generate just to start farming them. The wither fight in Bedrock Edition is way more chaotic than in Java. It constantly flies just out of reach and rarely stays still long enough for you to land a hit. Instead of shooting one wither skull at a time like in Java, it launches a whole barrage at once, and when it hits half health, it slams into the ground, explodes, and spawns a group of wither skeletons to attack you. Even after you finally kill it, it explodes again as a last attempt to take you down. In Java Edition, strongholds are filled with a mix of wooden and iron doors, especially in the prison cell areas. The iron doors even have buttons nearby so you can open them properly. But in Bedrock Edition, those iron doors are completely missing. The prison cells are just open, no doors at all. In Java Edition, if you fall onto an end portal at high speed, your momentum carries over, and you'll take full damage once you teleport. But in Bedrock Edition, that full damage just disappears. You can drop straight into the portal from any height and land safely on the other side. This means you can dig a huge hole from the surface down to the end portal and use it as a dramatic entrance. Just dive in and teleport safely every time. Cocoa beans in Minecraft have had a weird texture bug for years, but Bedrock Edition somehow made it worse. In Java Edition, one of the cocoa bean growth stages used to have a tiny misalignment. The side of the pod was 8 pixels wide, but the top was only 7 pixels, just enough to look slightly off. This was eventually fixed in the 1.19 Wild update, but in Bedrock, the bug still exists, and it affects every single growth stage. The textures are misaligned, the edges are chopped off, and the whole thing looks broken. It's been like this for years. This might be one of the craziest discoveries in Bedrock Edition. It lets players teleport through walls and instantly travel massive distances. It's called sand skipping, and here's how it works. You stack a bunch of falling blocks, like sand, into a single cobweb, then push them with a piston. When that happens, the blocks instantly spread out in a straight line. Now, here's the crazy part. If a player is inside the stack when it's pushed, they get launched all the way to the end of that line, even through solid walls. With sand, you can teleport up to 320 blocks, but if you use dripstone instead, you can travel over 5,000 blocks, and it gets even better if you don't want to place sand manually each time. This also works with snow layers. By using snow golems and pistons to push snow into the cobweb, you can build a fully self-sustaining snow skipper that resets itself automatically. In Java, if you want to see what potion effects you currently have, you just check your inventory. However, in Bedrock, your effects aren't displayed here. So, where'd you find them? Well, Bedrock actually has its own separate potion menu, which you can access by pressing Z. It shows all of your active potion effects and how much remaining time they have. I personally prefer the Java menu because a separate menu for this is not needed. Do you like my house? It was built on top of the nether roof. However, this is only possible in Java because in Bedrock, the game won't allow you to place blocks up here. A tiny detail that 99% of players overlook is how double blocks like doors or beds are outlined. In Java Edition, only the part of the block your cursor is hovering over will be outlined. In contrast, Bedrock Edition outlines the entire double block as one connected connected shape. Which style do you prefer? Coral blocks will die and turn gray after a few seconds if left out in the open. However, in Bedrock Edition, coral blocks won't die as long as they're completely surrounded by non-air blocks. You can even use glass or slabs to keep the coral's vibrant color visible from the surface. In Java Edition, this trick doesn't work. The coral will still turn gray no matter what you surround it with. Woolen carpet can only be used as furnace fuel in Java Edition. This means you won't be able to use a carpet duper to get infinite fuel while in Bedrock. However, Bedrock's furnace has its own advantages. It can use a beehive as fuel, while Java can't. Okay, that's not that good. Mobs in Java aren't able to pathfind over rails, which means hostile mobs won't cross them to attack you. However, in Bedrock Edition, mobs are programmed to be smarter. They can easily walk over the rails to reach you. Squids have a superpower! In Bedrock Edition, a squid's tentacles show how much oxygen they have left. The longer they are out of water, the slower their tentacles move. After 15 seconds, they start suffocating, and their tentacles stop moving completely. In Java Edition, their tentacles move at the same speed regardless of their oxygen level. This is what a bubble column looks like in Java, and this is what it looks like in Bedrock. The bubble column in Java Edition blends more in with the water. However, in Bedrock, the bubble column feels like an actual block that's not water. In the past, there were even glitches to get the bubble column item. In Bedrock Edition, if you place a fish on slime blocks, the fish will start to bounce super high. However, if you try the same in Java Edition, fish will still bounce, but not just as high. If you can't turn on sounds, Java Edition offers sound subtitles that visually indicate nearby sounds. You can't sneak up on me, zombie! In Bedrock Edition, when you hold out a piece of food, animals eagerly and quickly approach you. In contrast, in Java Edition, if you walk slightly too fast or move a bit too far away, the animals quickly lose interest. Are you kidding me? I'm right here! The petrified oak slab looks like a regular wooden slab but requires a pickaxe to mine. In older versions of Bedrock Edition, updating your world would convert old wooden slabs into petrified oak slabs. However, if you break one today, it will drop a normal oak slab instead. So if you still have one, don't break it! It's rare! While flying in Java Edition, once you stop pressing forward, your momentum will carry you a bit further. However, in Bedrock Edition, you'll immediately come to a halt. Bedrock offhand slot is useless. Only a select few items can be placed here, such as shields, tipped arrows, the Totem of Undying, and maps for exploring. On the other hand, in Java Edition, you can put any item you want in the offhand slot. I'm tired of purple shulkers! Luckily, in Bedrock Edition, you can dye a living shulker to any color you want. I like red, but trying to dye shulkers in Java is impossible in survival, and you'll end up just getting a few bullets to the face. To duplicate tall flowers, simply use bone meal on them, and the item will drop. This method doesn't work on small flowers in Java Edition. However, in Bedrock Edition, using bone meal on small flowers causes the flower type to spread around. Now I can finally farm tulips efficiently! That's much scarier in Bedrock Edition. When they shoot a fireball here, their eyes actually glow. In Java Edition, their eyes merely turn red without any glow. You don't scare me! TNT doesn't explode underwater, right? Well, sort of. In Java Edition, dropping sand on top of TNT makes it explode underwater. But the same thing in Bedrock Edition doesn't work. When you kill the Ender Dragon in Bedrock, the dragon dies right where it took its final blow. But if you kill it in Java Edition, the dragon will fly to the top of the end fountain. What server should I play on? In Java, if you want to find fun, popular servers to play on, you have to search online and look through server lists. However, Bedrock Edition has its own featured server list that you can easily hop on and have fun! If you like TNT in this order, a heart-shaped explosion will form. However, this only works in Bedrock, and trying the same thing in Java will result in just a random explosion. Cobwebs have a unique feature only in Java Edition. You're able to place paintings on them and use them as secret entrances. Placing a painting on cobwebs won't work in Bedrock though. In Java Edition, if a charged creeper blows up multiple mobs, you'll only get a single skull from all of them. However, in Bedrock, every mob blown up by the charged creeper will give a skull, making them much easier to farm. When you eat food in Java Edition, there isn't much of an eating animation besides a few particles appearing near your mouth. But in Bedrock, you'll see your arm actually bringing the food to your mouth as you eat. Comparing the two side by side is really fascinating. Dying in Java Edition brings up a simple death screen. In contrast, Bedrock Edition features a dynamic zoom out animation, showing your character's last location. When too many mobs are in a tight space in Java Edition, they'll begin to take damage and die. However, entity cramming was never added to Bedrock Edition, so we can still spawn hundreds of chickens into a one-block space, and when you let them out, they'll shoot out like a chicken cannon! Oh, I love Bedrock now. Help! My house is on fire! Fortunately, in Bedrock Edition, if it starts raining, the fire will be extinguished very quickly. This is because Bedrock rain instantly puts out fires. Conversely, in Java, rain also extinguishes flames, but it does so much slower in comparison. If you mine with your fist, no items will drop. However, Bedrock Edition has a surprising twist. You can actually break furnaces, blast furnaces, and smokers with just your fist and still obtain the item. What's even crazier is the fact that you can mine an enchanting table, which is made out of obsidian, with your fists, and the item will still drop. If you try the same thing on Java Edition, just air will drop as usual. My redstone contraption is ruined! In Java, when redstone components come in contact with water, they break. But in Bedrock, certain redstone components, like repeaters, tripwires, levers, and buttons, actually function underwater. You're able to make some fully underwater redstone circuits without worrying about things breaking down. When you spawn a wandering trader in Bedrock Edition, it'll spawn with 2 llamas, even when spawned using a spawn egg. In Java, you can spawn the wandering trader in without it holding onto llamas. In Java Edition, if you throw an invisibility potion at a shulker, the outer shell becomes invisible, revealing the creature inside. However, if you try the same thing in Bedrock Edition, nothing happens. It's immune to invisibility. In Java, the player holds items so they're parallel with the ground, but in Bedrock, holding an item will be slightly angled. I like the Bedrock design better. In Java Edition, you can sleep in a bed completely submerged by water. However, in Bedrock Edition, the bed gets waterlogged and you can't sleep in it. If you light the ground on fire in Java Edition, the mobs will smartly try to go around it. In Bedrock Edition, the mobs will just try running through the flames, and they won't have too much luck with that. You probably know that certain blocks like stairs and candles can be waterlogged. However, in Bedrock Edition, you can also waterlog end portal frames, bells, beds, beacons, pistons, and even doors. The doors in particular are a problem because they can't be used as an air pocket when you're about to drown. To create an infinite water source, you typically need at least 2 buckets of water. However, in the Bedrock Edition, you can achieve this with just 1. This is due to a special feature in Bedrock. When water flows into a cauldron, it fills up, allowing you to scoop up water repeatedly. In contrast, in Java Edition, flowing water cannot fill a cauldron. You must directly fill cauldrons with a bucket of water. If you feed a parrot a cookie in Java, it dies instantly. However, in Bedrock, giving a cookie to a parrot will cause it to slowly die from poison. I even tried saving the parrot with healing potions, but it didn't work. This is because the parrots suffer from a special potion effect called fatal poison, which guarantees its death. This isn't a zombie, rather it's a giant! It's only found in Java Edition and has to be summoned using commands. Stop hitting me! In Bedrock Edition, if you want to disable PvP, there's actually a game rule to disable it. If you want to do the same in Java, you have to use the /team command. If you look really closely at the end portal in Java and Bedrock, you'll notice that the portal texture differs slightly between the 2 versions. You can see this difference easily by zooming in with a spyglass. If you're in Java Edition, don't build your walls out of magma blocks. Although magma might seem like a good barrier against hostile creatures, spiders can climb over them in this edition. However, if you're in Bedrock Edition, magma blocks are a safer choice for wall construction because spiders can't climb them. When you place a conduit in Java Edition, it hovers slightly in the air. In Bedrock Edition, the conduit will be flush with the ground. If you turn on peaceful mode in Java Edition, it'll delete all piglin brutes from your world. However, in Bedrock Edition, piglin brutes can exist in peaceful difficulty and have a passive behavior. You can't hurt me anymore! Die! What happens if you activate this end portal with a nether portal inside? There's actually 2 possible outcomes. In Java Edition, activating the end portal will simply break the nether one. However, in Bedrock, activating the end portal will slice off the bottom part of the nether portal, yet it will remain fully functional. This item name is so long! That's because in Java, an anvil can rename an item a maximum of 50 characters, but in Bedrock, an anvil can only rename an item up to 30 characters. In Java Edition, renaming a mob while it's in a bucket will also rename the mob when you place it. However, this feature is actually only in Java. In Bedrock Edition, renaming the bucket won't affect the mob's name. Once you place down the renamed bucket of axolotl, the name tag won't apply to the axolotl, and your bucket name will be reset. I just got scammed! In Bedrock Edition's inventory, if you select an item, it'll actually enlarge it so that you can easily tell what item you're selecting. In Java Edition, the item will stay the same size. You stink! If you punch a pufferfish in Java Edition, the pufferfish won't inflate. The Java pufferfish only inflates when you get near it. In contrast, in Bedrock, punching will cause the pufferfish to puff up. Haha! It's like a piñata! Oh, whoops. When it snows in Bedrock Edition, the leaves actually change color to white, and it looks so pretty. If you place down jungle leaves here, it looks like they have bananas or some kind of fruit attached to them. The scaffolding item texture looks slightly different between the 2 versions. The Bedrock scaffold is the bottom part connected. In Java, name tags don't work on armor stands, but in Bedrock, they do. You can even name it dinner bone stone to flip the stand upside down. Enchanted golden apples in Bedrock Edition are actually stronger than the ones in Java. Java apples only give regeneration 2. However, in Bedrock, they give regeneration 5. That's so overpowered. If you're playing on Bedrock, don't let water near your tracks because it'll completely destroy your rails. But if you're on Java, water's not much of an issue because rails are unaffected by water and can even be waterlogged. My Java roller coaster goes through the ocean. A regular pumpkin won't work to create a golem in Java, but in Bedrock, normal pumpkins do work. Why does this difference exist? In Java, armor stands look like this, but in Bedrock, they have functioning arms so you can display your hard-earned weapons. However, that's not even the best difference. By shift-clicking an armor stand in Bedrock, you can change its pose. Alternatively, you can also change the pose by powering the armor stand with redstone. The pose you get depends on the redstone's signal strength. In Bedrock Edition, if you give an armor stand a glass block, you can actually use it to see through water and ice. Make sure to use night vision to clearly see through the ocean depths. This contraption can also be used to see through honey and slime blocks, allowing you to see what's going on the other side of a sticky wall. In Java, if you summon an armor stand with arms and give it a glass block, nothing special happens, and everything will render correctly. In Java, you're able to spawn shulkers below the void to create a walkable void base. But in Bedrock, this isn't possible, and mobs can't be spawned below Bedrock. Check out my dance moves! In Bedrock Edition, you can use /play animation command to dance, and you can apply it to other entities too. Like this ghast animation makes our bodies very big and head small, or this Enderman animation makes a player's head detach from its body. Eek! Did you know in Java Edition the sun and moon are always there at the same time? So even when it is nighttime, you can actually see the sun in the void or vice versa. However, in Bedrock Edition, the sun and moon actually disappear after a period of time after sunset and sunrise respectively. By adding a map and glass pane into a cartography table, you'll create a locked map that can't be modified. However, it'll look the exact same as a normal map in Java Edition, but in Bedrock, if you create a locked map, it'll actually be encased in glass. The map looks like it's crystallized. In Bedrock Edition, skeleton and zombie horses are attacked by the conduit. These horses may seem like hostile creatures, but they're actually passive mobs that the player can even get on. So it doesn't make too sense for the conduit to be attacking them. I thought this glitch was patched! In Java Edition, if you start mining a block and then switch tools midway, the mining progress will reset. However, in Bedrock Edition, you can start mining with one tool, switch to another midway, and the mining progress will continue. This glitch lets you mine most of the block with your better tool, then quickly switch to a weaker tool just before the block breaks, saving the durability of your better tool. Glowing signs work differently in Java and Bedrock. In Java, the colors are brighter but not accurate to the palette, while in Bedrock, the text outlines are too dark. So both editions have their trade-offs with glowing signs. How am I standing inside this end portal? In Bedrock Edition, if you place fence blocks directly beneath the portal, you can stand inside it without being teleported. However, in Java Edition, attempting the same setup will result in immediate teleportation to the end. Java and Bedrock's combat systems are completely different. In Java, there's an attack cooldown, so players have to wait in between hits. But in Bedrock, players can just spam hits because the cooldown system will be awkward on mobile devices. Additionally, this also means sweeping edge attacks don't exist in Bedrock, so players will still have to kill mobs in their mob grinder one by one, while Java players can take them out hastily. Most servers in Java Edition use the chest inventory as a GUI, but in Bedrock Edition, the GUIs are so much better. They have custom interfaces with custom icons. The more you trade with villagers, the more trades you can unlock. Bedrock villagers are slightly better than Java ones because they show the next level trades you'll unlock. In Java, if you /kill the Ender Dragon, it will instantly disappear, and the portal to the overworld will activate. But trying the same thing in Bedrock Edition has a slightly different result. When you /kill the dragon in Bedrock, the dragon actually finishes its dying animation, and then the portal to the overworld will get activated. In Bedrock, you can see the text on signs through the opaque textures of glass blocks. In Java Edition, glass blocks function as expected, and you can't see through the textured parts of the block. This is pretty satisfying. When you quick move items in the Bedrock Edition GUI, items will play a smooth animation to get to their destinations, while in Java, the items instantly snap to their destination. If you light an end portal with an end crystal inside of it, will the end crystal be teleported? Well, it's complicated. In the Bedrock Edition, the crystal will actually transport over to the end, but in Java, the crystal will just stay there. The max render distance in Java Edition is 32 chunks, which is already quite impressive. However, in Bedrock Edition, the max render distance is a staggering 96 chunks. To put this into perspective, you can see the outer end islands from the main island in Bedrock Edition. For some reason, Bedrock Edition has a little dude in the top left corner. Besides showing what armor you're wearing, he's not too useful and is just chilling up there. Endermites behave differently in Java and Bedrock Editions. In Bedrock, Endermites are a lot more aggressive. They'll be the first ones to attack Endermen. However, in Java, it's the opposite. Java Endermites only attack when they are provoked first by Enderman. In Java Edition, you dye leather armor by combining the armor and dye in a crafting table. However, this method doesn't work in Bedrock Edition. In fact, the crafting recipe to dye leather armor in a crafting table doesn't exist at all in Bedrock. Instead, you need to add dye to a cauldron, then dip the armor into the cauldron to apply the color. In Minecraft, when your pet dies, a sad death message usually appears. However, in Java Edition, you won't receive any message if pets like horses or llamas die, so you might not even realize they're gone. In contrast, Bedrock Edition shows death messages for tamed donkeys, llamas, trader llamas, horses, and mules, making it easier to know when one of them dies. Did you know foxes in Bedrock are stronger than the ones in Java? Bedrock foxes have 10 entire hearts, while Java foxes only have 5. You're too weak! In Java, you may be familiar with the chicken jockey. However, Bedrock Edition takes this concept further with an additional 20 jockey types. In Bedrock, 15% of naturally spawned baby zombies have the capability to mount a variety of mobs, including pandas, cows, sheep, and even other adult zombies. Some of them look pretty cursed. In Java Edition, the bottom layer of the world is a single solid layer of bedrock. However, in Bedrock Edition, there are 2 solid layers of bedrock. It's ironic that bedrock is actually thicker in Bedrock Edition! Okay, maybe not that funny. I'm just gonna leave. Charged creepers have a secret ability in Bedrock Edition. You can actually look through their glowing aura, and you'll be able to see through water and ice. Good luck trying this in survival, though. Summoning a bunch of end crystals in Java Edition creates a visually satisfying stack. However, if you do the same in Bedrock Edition and then reload your world, the effect is even more impressive. The resulting pattern is so unique that it barely feels like Minecraft. If you fly into water while wearing an elytra in Java Edition, the elytra will still be equipped, and you'll be in a weird hybrid between swimming and flying. You can even dive into the water and hold spacebar to make it look like you're walking upside down in the water. But if you try the same in Bedrock, the elytra just gets deactivated as soon as you enter water. To open the chat in Bedrock Edition, you're able to press either the return key in addition to pressing T. In Java, you're forced to press T. Corals are slightly different between Minecraft editions. If you place a coral fan on the wall in Bedrock, it'll only be one-sided. But if you place the same fan in Java, it'll be two-sided. Fire protection is way more overpowered in Bedrock Edition than in Java. In Bedrock, if you have at least 7 levels of fire resistance, you won't catch on fire. You'll still take some damage when directly in contact with the fire or lava, but you won't stay on fire when you come out. Cakes are delicious! In the Bedrock Edition, when you eat one, you'll even hear burping sounds. Oops, excuse me. In Bedrock, there's actually a first-person idle animation, so your hands move slightly up and down, while in Java Edition, your hands just stay completely still. Check out this tight gap! Trying to go through it by boat won't work in Java, but if you switch to Bedrock, you'll be able to row right through. If you get shot by an arrow in Java Edition, the arrow will get stuck to your player model. You'll even start to look like a porcupine with all those arrows. However, in Bedrock, the arrows don't attach to the player, and you just take damage. If a zombie villager wears armor in Bedrock Edition, the clothes will overlap on top of the armor. The villager is wearing his shirt on top of his golden armor, which is quite a unique fashion statement. In Java, zombie villagers are a bit more conventional and keep their armor on top of their clothes. Well, besides the pants. You're so close! Check out this spiral. To get the gold at the end, piglins in Java Edition have to run all the way to the middle. But in Bedrock, they have longer arms and just reach over. Zombified piglins normally can swim in lava just fine. But if you put them in a lava cauldron, something strange happens. In Bedrock Edition, if you put the zombified piglin in a lava cauldron, it'll start showing the damage animation. However, it's not actually losing hearts. The animation just plays. This also happens to baby striders when you put them in the cauldron. The lava cauldron is a pretty unique way to torture mobs. In Java Edition, a simple way to take no damage from cactus is placing a carpet on top of it. While in Bedrock, the carpet won't protect you, and you'll still take damage. When you activate a command block in Java Edition, it'll by default have the @ symbol as the name. But in Bedrock Edition, command blocks by default have an exclamation mark as the name. I actually like that they have different names because the command block GUI between the two versions is vastly different. The Bedrock command block even has a delay option. Jumping, punching the air, and dropping items will all play unique sound effects in Bedrock Edition. But in Java, those actions make no sound. If you use a spyglass and then move your camera super quickly in Bedrock Edition, you'll see that the spyglass doesn't correctly follow along with the rest of your body. On the other hand, in Java, the arm and spyglass correctly animate even when you move super quickly. If you deal more than 2 damage to an entity in Java Edition, dark heart particles will appear around the mob. If you give yourself strength 255 and hit a mob, you'll see a bunch of those dark hearts appear. However, try the same in Bedrock Edition, and you won't see any dark hearts. This is a shulker chest. It's made in 100% survival in the Bedrock edition. To create it, simply push a shulker into a chest using a piston. This setup allows you to access all your items while providing a decorative touch. Plus, it's quite secure. The shulker can't fire bullets while it's contained inside the chest. When you feed animals in Bedrock edition, you can see crumbs of the specific food appear at the animal's mouth. Well, on Java, you won't see any difference no matter which food you use. This book was written by Notch, and it was gotten without any cheats. That's because in Bedrock edition only, you can sign the book with any author you want. If you want to do the same in Java, you need to use commands. My inventory is completely full of cakes! This is because in Java, cakes can only be in stacks of 1. However, if we switch over to Bedrock, cakes can actually stack up to 64. Okay, I might switch versions now. If you name tag a slime in Java edition and then kill it, the name will actually be split to all the smaller slimes. But if you try the same thing in Bedrock, you'll be disappointed and find that killing the named slime will result in smaller slimes without any names. Sprinting is broken in Bedrock edition. When you go into third person, you'll see that you have stiff legs when sprint jumping. It looks pretty odd, but I prefer the Java running animation a lot more. In Java, the advancement menu is pretty confusing with all the advancements branching off, but Bedrock has a cleaner UI. It shows the percentage of achievements you've completed and other potential achievements you can accomplish. In Bedrock, you're able to push chests with pistons, so a cool trick we can do is splitting apart a double chest. It feels so wrong doing this though. If you summon a ton of items in Bedrock edition, it won't look very special. It'll just be a pile of loot. But if you do the same thing in Java and then reload your world, the item stack will look extremely satisfying. I need this in my life. If you travel roughly 30 million blocks away from spawn, you'll find the world border in Java edition. In contrast, Bedrock edition does not have a fixed world border. Instead, the game world starts to deteriorate the further you travel from spawn. When you reach 524,000 blocks, movement becomes jittery and difficult to control. Paintings break and can be placed on top of each other and through solid blocks. At 4.1 million blocks, you can no longer move on the ground. Movement is only possible by flying, either with an elytra or in creative mode. At 8.3 million blocks, entities less than 1 block wide, like pigs, will fall through the world. Larger entities like camels remain unaffected. Textures of blocks such as bells and stonecutters also break. Finally, at 16.7 million blocks, you'll be at the Stripe Lands, a highly corrupted area of the world. If you go to the corner Stripe Lands, it'll even look like a sky grid. The book and quill is different between editions. In Java, the book and quill can be written up to 100 pages in a single book. But in Bedrock, it can only be written up to 50 pages. This is because people who play Bedrock aren't able to read as well as Java players. I'm just kidding. It's more likely to save storage since Bedrock players play on devices like phones. When you open a book in Java, you flip through it 1 page at a time. However, in Bedrock, you read books 2 pages at a time, which mimics how you would typically read a physical book. Although this is more realistic, I prefer Java's single-page books because it's a bit less overwhelming. Be careful! The wither is a lot deadlier in Bedrock edition than in Java. In Bedrock, it features a white spawning animation, while in Java, the animation is blue. The Bedrock wither also has 600 hearts, whereas the Java wither has only 300 hearts. Endermen hate water, but in Java, they're able to stay inside of a water cauldron without any problem. But in Bedrock, cauldrons behave properly, and Endermen will get hurt by touching the water inside. When a mob is on fire in Java edition, it just blinks red. But if you look closely in Bedrock edition, you'll see the mob also turns orange. You can see the difference quite clearly when they're side by side. In Java, if you throw a snowball or egg at a player, it won't deal any knockback. But in Bedrock, the snowballs and eggs actually will deal knockback on other players. Iron bars are different between Java and Bedrock editions. In Bedrock, the iron bars have a symmetric look to them, while in Java, iron bars look more random. I honestly prefer the more random look because the symmetric iron bars in Bedrock edition can feel repetitive. Bedrock edition used to have 2 secret mobs that didn't exist in Java. The first was a giant rabbit, which could be summoned using commands. This rabbit was over a full block tall, making it look quite goofy when next to normal rabbits. The second secret mob appeared when you summoned a tamed wolf. When you died it, the entire wolf would change colors instead of just the color. In Bedrock edition, hearts move down when having regeneration, while in Java, the hearts move up. It definitely makes more sense for the hearts to move up. Only in Bedrock edition, selecting an enchanted item in your hotbar will show all enchantments below it. This way you can easily see all your enchantments without having to open your inventory. So in first person, when you switch to an enchanted item, it'll show it. If you carve a pumpkin in Java, you'll get 4 seeds. But if you carve a pumpkin in Bedrock, you'll only get 1 seed. Come Come on! The crossbow has a durability of 465 in Java, but in Bedrock it has a durability of 464. I have no idea why they're different by 1. If you use a fishing rod on a mob in a boat, you can actually reel it out in Bedrock Edition. It's a great way to get mobs out of boats without accidentally hitting them when you meant to break the boat. Silk Touch is more useful in Bedrock. In Java Edition, path blocks always drop dirt when broken. Even using a Silk Touch shovel won't work on it. But in Bedrock, Silk Touch actually works, and you can pick up the path blocks as items. Changing game modes in Java Edition requires you to type out the full mode name, but Bedrock Edition simplifies this with abbreviations like S for Survival and C for Creative, which is especially handy on mobile devices. Bedrock Chat is much more annoying to use as it covers up the entire screen when trying to type something. The only upside is that there are buttons for quick commands. Java Chat, on the other hand, is pretty clean and minimal. This is an illegal door. It was made using a debug stick in Java Edition. Unfortunately, if you want to do this in Bedrock, it won't be possible because the debug stick exists only in Java. Will lava turn waterlogged blocks into stone even if they contain sea crops? The results will surprise you. In Bedrock Edition, lava transforms waterlogged crops into stone. In contrast, in Java Edition, lava appears to float above the waterlogged blocks. This feels illegal to look at. This is a baby villager in Java Edition, and this is what it looks like in Bedrock. Its head is so much bigger. If you look directly at the sun in Bedrock Edition, the sun gets slightly larger while the sky gets slightly darker. This visual effect was added to simulate how your eyes see extremely bright things in real life. Everyone knows that if you play a jukebox near parrots, they'll start to dance. But did you know that in Java Edition, parrots stop dancing once they land on your shoulder? In contrast, if you're playing in Bedrock Edition, the party doesn't stop. The parrots will keep dancing even while perched on your shoulders. If an axolotl is struck by lightning in Bedrock Edition, it'll instantly die. There's no chance of saving it. If an axolotl is struck by lightning in Java Edition though, it'll be alive for a few more seconds and you can save it if you're quick enough with a water bucket. You're saved! Now time to feed you to my sword! This is a sunset in Java, and this is what it looks like in Bedrock. With these two sunsets side by side, we can see that Java has a longer sunset, while in Bedrock, it gets dark quicker. In Minecraft, there are noticeable differences in how the hand is displayed between the Bedrock and Java editions. In Bedrock Edition, the hand position is noticeably lower on the screen compared to Java Edition, giving it a slightly different perspective when holding items or interacting with the environment. If you compare them side by side, this difference becomes quite apparent. Another interesting distinction is a visual effect that occurs when the player takes damage. In Bedrock Edition, your hand briefly turns red to indicate that you've been hurt, adding an extra layer of visual feedback. However, this effect does not exist in Java Edition. When you take damage, your hand remains unchanged. If you place a snow layer on top of a leaf in Bedrock Edition, small snowflake particles will actually drop, similar to how blocks make water and lava drip through. This only happens when the snow is placed on top of leaves, and you won't see any particles come through if you put them on blocks like glass or cobblestone. Nether stars have a special property in Bedrock Edition. Items typically despawn after 5 minutes of being dropped. However, nether stars never despawn in this version. If you're evil, you could throw a ton of nether stars that will lag your friend's world forever! I can't believe this doesn't exist in Bedrock Edition. In Java Edition, you can alternate ladders and trapdoors and still climb them. But in Bedrock, trying the same thing won't work. You won't be able to climb it. If you go underwater in both Java and Bedrock Edition, you'll see that the underwater brightness is much brighter in Bedrock Edition. Did you know ocean temples are harder to beat in Bedrock Edition? In Bedrock, if you drink milk to remove mining fatigue while within range of Elder Guardians, the effect is instantly reapplied. In contrast, Java Edition allows you up to a minute free from mining fatigue after drinking milk, giving you a chance to mine through the ocean monument and even steal the gold without needing to defeat the Elder Guardians. The void is far more dangerous in Java Edition than in Bedrock. The Bedrock void is covered by an invisible floor, so you won't endlessly fall. With regeneration, you can even walk along the void floor and fly out with fireworks once you're done exploring. But in Java, you'll just keep falling until you die. Not even being in creative mode will save you here. In Java Edition, if you cast your fishing rod through lava and the bobber lands on a mob, nothing will happen. However, in Bedrock Edition, this action will cause the mob to catch fire. If you get yourself a glass pane in Bedrock Edition, you'll notice that it has a 3D texture, whereas in Java, they have a 2D texture. While this may seem like a pointless difference, the 2D glass panes are often used to create a pretty GUI in Java. Moreover, in Java, the light gray stained glass pane appears almost invisible in your inventory, which can be used for pranks to make friends think their inventories are full. Good luck trying this on Bedrock. In Java, if you place a block and break a block underwater, the nearby armor stand won't move. However, trying the same thing in Bedrock Edition will cause the armor stand to get pulled towards the water as it fills back in. Did you know allies in Java Edition can't actually follow the player through portals? However, in in Bedrock Edition, allies will actually travel with the player by teleporting across dimensions. These guys are much more loyal. Sugarcane is mostly the same between Java and Bedrock. However, one notable difference is that bone meal works on it only in Bedrock Edition. A super useful trick in Java Edition is to use a boat to kill Endermen because they can't teleport out. However, I don't recommend trying this in Bedrock Edition because Endermen can actually teleport out of boats here. Please don't kill me! The Void in Java Edition is actually deadlier, and it's for two main reasons. First, entities in Java start taking Void damage at 64 blocks below Bedrock, while in Bedrock Edition, it doesn't start until 82 blocks below Bedrock. Second, the Void in Java deals 2 hearts of damage every 0.05 seconds, whereas in Bedrock, it only deals 2 hearts of damage every 0.5 seconds. You can survive a bit over 2 times as long in the Bedrock Void. When you name a Vindicator Johnny, it'll start attacking all neutral mobs. However, they're a lot more ruthless in Bedrock Edition. These Johnny Vindicators will go after and kill baby villagers and even try and kill armor stands. What's wrong with these guys? You probably know that in Java Edition, Dripstone can be shot through the end portal, and the next person who loads into the end will be hit by the Dripstone. However, if you try the same thing in Bedrock Edition, the Dripstones will just crack upon hitting the end portal and turn into item form. If you look very closely at the enchanting GUI in Java and Bedrock Editions, you can see that the Java enchanting book animation is slower than the one in Bedrock. I bet you didn't know that. This is what it looks like in Java Edition, and this is what it looks like in Bedrock Edition. As you can see, the wall item in Bedrock is actually 2 walls placed next to each other. Although it's technically less accurate, I think it looks better. When you pull a crossbow back in Bedrock Edition, you can physically see the arm pull the crossbow back. But in Java, the crossbow animation is slightly different, and you just see the arrow get pulled without the player's hand being visible. If you look really closely and compare the chest models in Java and Bedrock Edition, you'll see that Bedrock Edition chests look slightly bigger. That's because the item textures are using older models from Pocket Edition, so they almost look like they're taking up a full block. If you want to ride a horse, you'll need to use a saddle, right? Well, not exactly. In only Bedrock Edition, skeleton horses are tamed by default and don't require a saddle to control. In Java, if you activate a lever directly attached to a piston, the lever will actually break. On the other hand, in Bedrock, levers and buttons can be placed on pistons without being destroyed when activated. It's impossible to place torches on honey blocks because they're slightly smaller than a full block. Well, unless you're playing on Bedrock Edition where you somehow can. If you cook raw beef in Java Edition, its name will be steak. However, cooking the exact same item in Bedrock Edition will result in a different name: cooked beef. On Bedrock, if you're looking for skins and maps, you'll have to use the marketplace and pay real money for them. But Java, on the other hand, has free skins and maps that you can just download for free from the internet. In Java, you can shoot arrows between the gaps of beds, anvils, grindstones, and cauldrons. However, in Bedrock Edition, the arrows will just get stuck in the blocks and float in the air. The conduit in Bedrock Edition looks so much better. The Bedrock conduit has rune-like particles appear around it. I love them a lot, but in Java, the powered conduit particles just seem like boring water particles. Waterlogged banners and signs are more visible underwater in Bedrock Edition. The text is clearly visible here, but trying the same things in Java won't look as good. The banner can't be waterlogged, and the text blends right in with the water. I love foxes, but only in Bedrock Edition. This is because foxes in Bedrock that trust the player attack any mob that harms their trusted player. I love you, Foxy, more than my cat! Die, cat! Check out my bed setup. It includes a dispenser firing arrows right at the pillow. In Bedrock Edition, you can sleep undisturbed and wake up unharmed. But in Java, the arrows will hit you and wake you right back up. Please just let me sleep. Cauldrons are 1,000,000 times better in Bedrock. Not only can they be used to store potions, but you can also right-click with arrows to tip them. This method is so useful that I don't even know how to craft tipped arrows normally. I wish Java had this. When you use a minecart on a sleeping villager in Bedrock Edition, the villager will still be sleeping in the minecart. This is obviously a Bedrock-only feature because Bedrock is full of bugs. In Java, you're able to ride boats near lava. However, don't even think about it on Bedrock because doing so will cause the boat to take a ton of damage quickly and break. In Bedrock Edition, books display 2 pages at once, which might not seem important, but it actually affects redstone mechanics. A comparator can detect which page of a book you're on. But since Bedrock shows 2 pages at a time, you'll need twice as many pages to achieve the same signal strength as in Java Edition. Get in the minecart! In Java, iron golems are unable to fit inside of minecarts, but in Bedrock, they can for some reason get in. In Bedrock Edition, redstone comparators and repeaters can be placed on walls and fences. This is pretty cool, but not practical because you can't place redstone dust on them, unfortunately. Why can't Java have this? In Java, when a baby horse grows up, it instantly transforms into the adult variant. But Bedrock horses are a lot more realistic. Horses gradually increase in size as they age until they reach full adulthood. While you may know know that on Halloween mobs have a chance to spawn with pumpkins on their head, you probably didn't know the Bedrock edition has an exclusive feature that the Java one doesn't. Bedrock's menu screen is a custom Halloween-themed panorama during the Halloween seasons. I'm jealous! Water breathing has a magical property in Bedrock edition. Here, if you splash an aquatic mob with water breathing, it'll actually survive on land. This is more like an oxygen potion, not a water breathing potion. This is insane! So you may know that you can use bone meal to spread nylium to other netherrack blocks, but did you know there's a way to convert the nylium back into netherrack? If you place a snow layer on top of a nylium block, the nylium will actually decay and turn into a regular netherrack block. If you splash a llama with invisibility, its carpet can still be seen in Java edition. However, in Bedrock, the carpet actually becomes invisible with the llama. Grindstones in Bedrock need a supporting block or it'll break. A cool trick we can do with this is create a long line of grindstone and then break the supporting block to send them all crumbling down in a chain reaction. This villager is stronger than most players. It's been equipped with netherite thorns armor using dispensers. You can also put mob skulls onto their heads that they can't take off. Unfortunately, trying the same thing in Bedrock won't work, and the items will just dispense to the floor. The creative menu in Bedrock edition is so much better. Items of the same type are put into expandable sections to not flood the creative menu. Additionally, you still have access to the crafting grid, so you can craft items while in creative mode. In Java, the organization isn't terrible, but I definitely prefer the Bedrock one. There's also no crafting grid here. Please add it, Mojang! This shulker box is actually a secret entrance. In Java edition, if you open it while standing on top, you'll be squeezed down into a secret passage. However, this trick doesn't work in Bedrock edition, where you'll simply be pushed to the side instead. One of my favorite features of Java edition is the ability to switch to older versions. However, good luck doing that in Bedrock because it's not possible. Skeletons are supposed to shoot you, but in Bedrock, if they're underwater, they'll melee attack you for some reason. Who coded this? In Java, super flat worlds come with structures like villages and strongholds, allowing for survival possibilities. But in Bedrock, you can get an option to toggle flat worlds. These lack any structures, making long-term survival nearly impossible. Additionally, Bedrock flat worlds offer no customization options. You're limited to flat grass. Meanwhile, Java edition features a variety of amazing presets for super flat worlds. If you drop an anvil onto a slime block in Java edition, the anvil will take damage. But in Bedrock, anvils won't take any damage from landing on slime blocks, which makes sense. Bedrock skins are way cooler. You can purchase skins with custom models, modify specific body features, and even use skins with animated textures, like a portal base. However, while this is all cool, in Java, you don't have to pay to customize your skin. Well, I think that makes it better. Water and fire normally don't mix, but how about ice and fire? In Java, you're able to light ice on fire to melt it down. However, in Bedrock, it's actually impossible to light the ice on fire, which I guess makes sense. Crimson and warped roots are nether plants and shouldn't burn, right? Wrong! In Bedrock, crimson and warped roots can be lit on fire and burn away even though they're nether blocks. In Java, they act as they should and don't burn. In Java edition, you use a shield by holding down the right-click button. However, in Bedrock, you must crouch to activate the shield, which can be quite cumbersome. Despite this, Bedrock edition offers a unique advantage. When you ride a horse, the shield is automatically held up, providing protection without any additional action required. Bedrock edition is censored! In Bedrock, any offensive word you type gets censored. It happens in everything from writing on signs, renaming items in an anvil, or writing in a book and quill. No bad words are allowed on Bedrock. Drip leaves behave differently in Java and Bedrock editions. If the player is standing inside a big drip leaf when it is fully tilted, and the drip leaf returns to the untilted position, the player is left crawling underneath the leaf. However, in Bedrock edition, this behavior is different. The player briefly enters a crawling position, but is quickly forced back to standing. If you try to place blocks below the void in Bedrock edition, you'll get a warning message. In Java edition, attempting the same simply won't let you place the blocks, but no message will appear. In only Bedrock edition, you can grow coral by using bone meal underwater anywhere. You don't need to be in a warm ocean biome. You can even grow coral in desert biome water. In contrast, Java edition coral can only be grown if you're in a warm ocean biome. When lightning strikes a lightning rod in Java edition, the rod will briefly turn white. You can even use a debug stick to click on the lightning rod to make it permanently stay white. However, in Bedrock, lightning rods don't change colors at all even when lightning strikes. When you pick up an axolotl in Bedrock edition, the bucket name is a lot more specific. The name will include if the axolotl is a baby or adult, and the color of the axolotl. Conversely, in Java, regardless of what axolotl you have, the bucket name will be the same. How are there glow squids here? In Bedrock edition, glow squids can spawn in any dimension, including the nether and the end. However, for them to spawn in the nether, you'll need to use commands to place water, since since they require water to spawn. It's still pretty wild to see these glowing squids in such a fiery dimension. A super quick way to extinguish candles in Java Edition is with water bottles. However, this doesn't work in Bedrock no matter how many bottles you throw. I can't believe you can do this! In Bedrock Edition, you're able to emote, and there are tons of different dance moves to choose from. You can access the emote menu by pressing B, and by default, you'll have these emotes unlocked. Unfortunately, if you want more, many of them cost mine coins, so most of us will just have to stick to the simple emotes. When you ride a horse in Java Edition, your hunger bar gets replaced with the horse's health, and your XP bar becomes the horse's jump bar. This is quite annoying because it hides useful information. Luckily, in Bedrock Edition, the player's health and hunger bar are both displayed, and the player's experience bar is replaced by the horse's jump bar only when the jump control is activated. Did you know dolphins are much deadlier in Bedrock Edition? If you accidentally hit one, all nearby dolphins will swarm to attack you, similar to how zombie pigmen behave. In Java Edition, if you hit a dolphin, their response is less aggressive. Did you know light-emitting blocks in Bedrock Edition are brighter and not shaded? Just compare glowstone between the two versions, and you'll notice a big difference in brightness. The same goes for sea lanterns, frog lights, and jack-o'-lanterns. Bedrock's textures are much brighter, which kind of makes sense. It looks like boo instead of blee. By casting a fishing rod in Bedrock Edition, you'll notice something interesting. The bobber is actually a 3D model, while in Java, the bobber is only a 2D texture. However, that's not the only way the Bedrock fishing rod is better. Its durability is 384, while the Java rod is only 64. This is so unfair! Light blocks are very different in Bedrock Edition. Light blocks here will get replaced by placing a block in its place, can be moved by pistons, and produce particles when broken. Even the item textures look vastly different between the two editions. In Java Edition, if your bed is surrounded by blocks like so, your respawn point will be considered obstructed. When you die, you'll respawn at the world spawn point instead of at your bed. In contrast, Bedrock Edition is much more lenient. Even if you cover your bed with a large number of blocks, you'll still respawn at or near it. You can place your bed deep underground, and the game will still find the nearest open space for you to spawn. It almost feels like magic! Lily pads are slightly thicker in Bedrock Edition compared to the completely flat ones in Java. You may know that piglins are scared of soul fire, but they also fear something quite silly. In Bedrock Edition, even if you extinguish a soul campfire, the piglins will still run away from the extinguished logs. The plains biome is actually different between Java and Bedrock Editions. In Java, there's grass plants littered all across the plains. But in Bedrock, there's a lot less, and you can actually build here. Do you think you can open this chest? In Java, you're able to open chests with half slabs on top perfectly fine. However, for some reason, you can't open them in Bedrock. This is what a bed looks like in Java, and this is what it looks like in Bedrock. Java beds have a 3D texture, while those in Bedrock have a 2D texture. Which one do you prefer? Lightning rods in Bedrock Edition are so much better. In Bedrock, lightning rods have a radius of 128 blocks instead of 64. If you look closely at Steve's face, you'll notice that he blinks every few seconds. But it's not just Steve. All the other official Bedrock skins are able to blink too, and it's kinda cool. This is an air bubble stream. It's a fully functional jet stream without any water or soul sand nearby. To create it, build a regular bubble elevator, block out the source blocks with powdered snow, and lastly, activate an end portal to destroy the soul sand at the bottom. This airstream is only possible on Bedrock Edition and is quite cool. Dolphins in Bedrock Edition have a hidden detail most people will miss. They produce small bubbles behind them as they swim, while Java ones do not. If you try to push a chest or a furnace with a piston in Java, they won't budge. But in Bedrock, tile entities can actually be pushed. I'm so jealous. When you activate a piston, check out the extended region. In Java Edition, the extended region looks fairly normal. But if you activate the piston in Bedrock Edition, you'll see that the piston rod looks a lot chunkier. Everyone knows leads can be attached to fences, but in Bedrock Edition, leads can also be attached to walls. The wall is so thick that there isn't even a texture that wraps around it. The lead just is connected inside of the wall. By constantly alternating the time from day to night with commands, you'll make villagers dance in and out of their beds. Unfortunately, on Java, the villagers don't react quick enough to create the same effect. Boo, you stink! Dogs in Bedrock Edition are able to be fed seafood like cooked tropical and pufferfish. However, Java dogs are a lot more picky and refuse to eat seafood. Transporting mobs can be extremely challenging. A useful technique in Java Edition involves setting the mobs on fire and placing water at your desired destination. Mobs on fire will instinctively run towards the nearest water source to extinguish themselves. However, this strategy does not work in Bedrock Edition, where mobs set on fire will just run around randomly instead. What will happen if you activate this end portal? There are pistons protruding into the portal area, so will they break the game? In Bedrock Edition, the extended pistons actually provide prevent the portal blocks from forming, resulting in an illegal end portal. However, if you attempt this in Java Edition, the portal will simply break the pistons when it activates. If you use a lever on the side of a piston in Java Edition, the lever will break. In Bedrock, the lever works perfectly fine. This piglin is being tortured. Pathfinding in Java Edition prevents it from going through the rails to reach the gold. However, Bedrock piglins have smarter pathfinding and will just walk right over the rails. Swamp huts in Bedrock Edition hides a super useful secret. Their cauldrons have a chance to be filled with a random potion, while in Java, these cauldrons are just empty. In Bedrock, if a parrot is sitting on the player's shoulders, it'll actually prevent the player from entering a nether portal. You'll just stay in the nether portal without actually being teleported. But in Java, you'll be able to enter the portal and the parrot will go through with you. In Java Edition, once a trident has been thrown and lands on the ground, dropping it onto other mobs will not deal any damage. This is because Java Edition only registers damage from the trident's initial throw. After it has landed, it essentially becomes an ordinary dropped item with no attack properties. However, in Bedrock Edition, the behavior is different. If you drop a thrown trident onto mobs, the game still treats it as an active projectile rather than a passive entity. This makes it possible to damage or even kill mobs simply by dropping a thrown trident on them. I can't see through the window! In Bedrock Edition, igloo windows are made of packed ice, so you can't see through them. However, in Java Edition, the windows are made of normal, transparent ice. I'm not sure which one I prefer though, because the ice melts when you use the furnace. Did you know riding pigs in Bedrock Edition is different? When you ride one, there's more of a delay in turns. The pig doesn't look up and down with the player, and the pig has to jump to get on blocks instead of just stepping up. In Java, the pig is a lot more reactive. It looks up and down with the player, and the pig can step up blocks easily. The Java pig is so much better. Did you know huge mushrooms could generate naturally in swamps? Well, kinda, because this is only possible in the Bedrock Edition. I swear I always thought these mushrooms generated in swamps in both versions, but apparently not. In Java Edition, wearing a mob skull has a tactical advantage. It halves the detection range of the same hostile mob type, making it harder for them to spot you. Unfortunately, this feature doesn't exist in Bedrock Edition, but it has its own unique perk. When you wear any type of head in Bedrock, you become invisible to other players on a locator map, which is a great tactic for hiding from your friends. In Java, the fishing rod can be used to hook and reel items towards you, but in Bedrock, fishing rods don't work on items. Snow is a lot more realistic in Bedrock. If you break the blocks below snow layers, the snow actually has a falling animation similar to sand. What's even more interesting is that you can place snow layers inside of flowers. In Java, you'll just have patches of grass wherever you have a flower planted, which looks quite odd. In Bedrock Edition only, you're able to ring a bell by dropping an item onto it. This is just wasteful! Normally, you can't eat food like steak or chicken when your hunger bar is full. However, in Bedrock Edition, Peaceful Mode lets you eat food even if your hunger bar is already full. Yeah, I'm just eating all this steak because I feel like it! How'd you like this, vegans? I don't recommend farming in the Nether, at least in Java Edition, because glowberries won't grow there. However, if you switch to Bedrock Edition and plant the same glowberries, they'll actually grow just fine. How does that make any sense?